Hello, welcome to the Low-Code Campfire. This is episode number 215 for October 10, 2025. Today is an Open Lines Friday. We'll talk about what you want to talk about. Of course, I always have something prepared, if not. I am Dale Warner, head of support for Plant an App, and I've been looking forward to this all week. This is a gathering that we do every Friday, getting together with the developers and clients of Plant an App, and where we talk about the techniques that we use, the challenges, the experiences, and we all grow a little bit week by week as we interact. We record all these and put them on YouTube, so you can see all 214 previous episodes out on youtube.com/plantanap. We run this agenda week by week. We stop and say hello because we're a very friendly group, and then we'll go around the campfire. We always do first call and anything you've submitted in advance, and then we'll talk about some of the other things going on within our community. After an hour or so, we go into our Afterglow segment. That's where we turn off the recording, raise a virtual adult beverage, and begin the weekend. So do engage with us through all of that. You can submit questions and topics in advance at just by sending an email to support@plantanap.com. Hello, team.
Good morning.
Everybody?
215 episodes, and I think you guys have been with me for most, if not all of those, so glad you're here. Did any of you, bring something first call to talk about?
Regrettably, or maybe thankfully, no, I did not.
Same here.
Well, good. There's always something to bounce into, so let's get into it. There was a post on the community forum about flattening an uploaded PDF. Thought it was an interesting question, although I didn't have a great answer. Thought I'd mention it to see if anybody had encountered something similar and what you did about it. So the question really is about as I understand it, a fillable PDF. You release a fillable PDF, people fill things in, and then you upload it, and you no longer you want it to become permanent, um, unmodifiable after that. So that's, I think, what we mean by flattening. And so somebody looking at that PDF after the fact would not be able to modify it. Anybody had that use case? Anybody solve that use case?
No, but I have not. But a question comes to mind. Can you password protect it once it's uploaded?
So we don't have an action that does that. And that's certainly would be a way to go about it. I don't know I read something that indicated that there's a couple of different maybe levels of passwording that um, one way is less secure, one way is more secure. I don't really remember exactly what I was reading. But again, nothing built in that I'm aware of. One of my first forays into web development on a very much older language that doesn't exist anymore was all about student loans and being able to upload documents that needed to be protected in that way, um, and and also leave a very nice trail that proved that they electronically signed the note. And so all of that was about getting a hash total that with that particular version of the form and their particular answers, and making it so that there was no way to, or making it so it was very provable that this was the form they signed and this was their signature was associated with it. But it's uh, all that's long gone all that. It's kind of funny how you do development and 20 years go by and then they find a different answer and all the work you put in it no longer is of value. That's a little philosophical thing for you today.
The harsh reality of our profession.
This is true. So maybe that's a discussion topic. How long does your stuff last? I mean, some of the stuff it might have a use that lasts 2 or 3 years, sometimes longer. But any feedback on that topic, just conversationally?
Well, and what I'm working on right now, the thing that I'm replacing is close to 20 years old. So I don't know how long it'll last, but it's not in a spot where it demands rapid change, in kind of current technology. So who knows? It could be around for a while. Outlast me.
Go. All right. So that was and I think I answered there. I did a quick search. There are some PowerShell things that might allow that to happen if you have control of the server and can put on a third-party product. It looked like there was answers to make that happen, but we don't do it out of the box yet. I've done a little bit more work in our documentation. This advances slowly and week by week, but at least it's happening. So um, in our listings, understanding these, we had this topic listing buttons, and I added the two subtopics, item buttons and root buttons. So explaining what they are and how they get used. And I think one of the reasons that I picked this, and I haven't done the work yet, but I think we've talked about this in this group before, that there's a couple of magic lists or unpublished lists that are available, and I want to document these on the root actions. They're not there yet, but they will be added here so that you'll be able to see them both in line, a pointer to this to remind you what's available.
Sounds good, Dale. That's been needed. Thank you.
It it is, and I mean, we'll go over it once I get it documented out. But it's interesting that there's some nuances there that I think are very important. There's some tokens, the ID tokens or IDs, that show every select item that's selected in the list, which I think, there's certainly a use case for that. If you have a thousand things and somebody's gone through and picked 10 different things on 10 different pages and maybe has done some filtering and sorting to find that, the IDs have all of it. And then these other lists, magic lists, I call them just because they're not published yet, but um, those have the selected items after filtering and sorting, excuse me, after filtering and searching is applied. So there's uh, four different things there that are available, and because there's two different versions of IDs, there are two versions of, or there's action grid entry selected is the other area, the lists that are available. But those are based on what's of it after filter sorting. So it's um, depending on your need, it's kind of critical that you get the right one. So definitely
Mhm.
worth documenting.
I would be very interested in that post documentation.
Okay. Well, it's an area that I'm actively working, so I would expect that maybe next week we'll have that. All right. So that's a little bit of change to documentations. I think at different times we've talked about Bootstrap 3. I just wanted to make sure that we get it out there that Bootstrap 3 is scheduled for removal in version 129. We talked about removing it in 128, and because we're trying to accelerate getting 128 out the door, we pushed this particular project back. But if you have if you're still using the Bootstrap 3 things, you'll be blocked from moving up. I say Bootstrap 3 things, so listings that are using Legacy View or forms that are using the Bootstrap 3 obsolete or material themes, that those things are won't be available in version 129. Does that happen to hurt any of you that are present?
No, sir. I made that transition pretty much right away.
Yeah, that's not going to be a problem for me.
For anyone following along um, offline, Bootstrap 3 we announced a couple of years ago. I mean, I think that framework, if I have it right, maybe was end of life before 2020, and we continue to support it. And our goal is to announce these kinds of changes and give you a year to at least a year to migrate. But it's a couple of years ago that we said we're going away from Bootstrap 3, and so now we're getting around to it. And it's been several years that Bootstrap 5 has been available. I had a client just today that was uh, just they're still using Bootstrap 3. They're just happened to kind of bump into Bootstrap 5 and just put it out as a reminder that there was a whole key concept change. Bootstrap 3 was loaded by our tools. So if you were on a theme that didn't have it, Bootstrap 3 just by way of a checkbox got loaded, and so everything just worked. Um, and so now it's the theme is responsible for loading Bootstrap, not us. So you have to find a theme that has Bootstrap 5 in it. We publish our Bootstrap, our page builder theme has it, and so it's available if you don't have a theme. But anyway, uh, yep, work to be done for some people. All right. After our meeting last week, I had a minute to think, and we were talking about CSS that followed the listing, and looked down. The Ruby slippers were available to us without making any changes at all. So the discussion was we have this settings area, and in the advanced UI settings, we don't have a place in here where we can put in CSS. And yet, with some simple JavaScript, um, and that's what I've published here as a contribution on Campfire, you can put some JavaScript in that adds the styles to your page. This follows the listing, so if you move the listing to another page, the CSS follows the listing, or if you export it, it'll go with you where you go. So it's a way to accomplish that thing. Mark, did you see
Well,
this? Try it.
yes, I saw it and I hadn't thought of using that JS for that. So I think that's very clever and useful. I appreciate that.
Ideally, you'd have a box that lets you put the CSS in there, but with all the things that are going on here at Plantain App, I'm not sure that we'll get to that anytime soon, and this is an instant answer. So anyway, that's documented out here on as a contribution. So CSS in listing initialization, and this is the CSS. So it's copy and paste and start putting your own CSS. This is the one that's active on this listing here.
Looking good.
Good. So I did another contribution. Well, it's halfway through, but we'll bring it up anyway. Um, been talking about showing off how you just can style listings with our new tools. And so this is one of those that I just did a plant and app entity, which created a basic, a automatic listing. And so I started styling this listing. And so first of all, I used this technique. And so the CSS appears here in the advanced UI settings. And so I started to make changes to this. Um, and so as compared to it could be on the page or it could be on the site, you can put the CSS where you want to. I'm putting it right here on the page. What I wanted to show off is that, so for example, this row is being styled based on a row status. I'm showing all the values. You wouldn't necessarily have to show the values, but if it's new, it gets green, and if it's other, it gets the default, and if it's existing, it gets whatever that is, corn silk perhaps. And so as we change things, if we put new here, and I didn't go into drop downs or anything like that, but just it's styling the whole row based on the value. And then showing off that we can style a column based on values within the column as well. So in this case, I'm styling it based on whether it's complete or incomplete, and anything incomplete is showing up bold and red. So the mechanism that does that, uh, it's kind of a two-parter. Let's first deal with the rows. If you look in the definition of a view and look at data table, there is this row CSS class. So this, whatever classes that you add here are going to show up in the HTML of the page. And so I'm putting in the constant row underscore status underscore, and then I'm using a token row status, which is this. So whatever the row status value is, which is either new, I've got values new, other, existing, but uh, this is going to say that the row is going to get row status and then new or other or existing. You can see that with the inspect. So if you right click and say inspect, and we'll take a look at this row, we can see that the definition of the row, the TR in the row, has row status new on this one. If we jump down to our next row, wherever that is, this has row status other, whatever. So this value is being dropped in and giving us a class. And then you can style that however you like. And I want to, let's see if we can find where this is being styled. Did I miss it? Uh, it doesn't show up here. Okay, row status new. If anybody knows the answer as I'm struggling around here.
You're looking in the same place I would look. There it is, row status new.
Ah, there it is, green, yellow. So um, interactively, we can look, well, how would this look with other values? So we can type red into this background or put in font size large or larger, and you can start to see the impact of making those kind of changes interactively. If you do it in the inspect and when you refresh the page, all those things go away, but it's a nice way to see what the impact is going to be and maybe do some visual design. I want to mention that one of the easiest ways to use something like this is that you start out by adding a row class, in my case, row status, with the row status being put on the class. Before you add any CSS, it just looks empty. It looks, you get the default look. So then once you do that, you can interactively add that class into the browser and start styling it. And once you find, in my case, I added a background with a green yellow and said, okay, that was what I want. So now you can copy this CSS and put it in your wherever you're going to define your CSS. In my case, it was in this on init JavaScript. So we have row status and all my values that I'm expecting. Row status new gets green yellow, row status existing gets corn silk, and if I had other values, as many different values as I'm expecting, I could define classes.
Hmm.
So that is row styling. And then if we look at, I wanted to style the note depending on the note status. So the definition on the note says the field CSS is note status and then whatever the note status value is from the row. So this is bringing in some value. Um, and again, in our case, we're getting values like complete and incomplete. So again, wherever you're defining your CSS, you say note status incomplete gets bold and red. Note status anything else, this that class will appear. Note status complete appears in the HTML, but since I don't have a CSS defined for it, it just comes in as default. So it's ignoring those. So that gets us to highlight this. Over the years, we've talked about doing the same thing, and there are other examples of how you can do it in JavaScript, but this is much more straightforward. You define a class in the appropriate place, either for the row or for the field, and then style that class, and it's very straightforward.
So Dale, a question for you. So you have the on-init JavaScript there, and your classes, your styling is defined there. Does it have to be there, or does it just require the JavaScript, and then you can call something else?
So the CSS can be anywhere. I've happened to put it here just because it's very convenient.
Yeah,
But you could put it on the page or you could put it on the site as a whole. If I copied this CSS out and put it on my site as a whole, whoops, I took too much there. If I copied it and pasted it elsewhere, now you would not need to do it in the on init JavaScript. It's wherever you want to do it.
so by doing that, this is a question, I guess. Um, could you then call back and grab the existing styles that are defined in the Plant and App theme for your site as variables?
Absolutely. You don't whatever CSS is available, um, you can use. So uh, it's a so for example, if there was something instead of defining, we're defining both halves of the problem. Here's the class that I want to put on the row, and here's the CSS that goes with that class. If the CSS is defined, if you're using page builder theme and there's CSS that you like to use, you can just use that. If you can define that class here, that's what gets called, right?
Right. So for example, the generated CSS variables are things like the PB color, PB accent color, font color, shade color, shaded accent, and so on. So you could just, in other words, control the whole thing potentially from your generated CSS variables and have that, in that case, be very portable.
Yes. The so this kind of I think this leads me to a topic I wanted to talk about. Oftentimes, um, the data for a listing is done in SQL. This time it happens to be an entity, right? But if you were doing a SQL style, let's see, SQL select. So one of the techniques that you can use is that when you select out your variables, that you could add logic here that would generate um, a variable in your SQL. So let's say um, so you could end up with
Yeah,
a
yeah, I
column
get.
row
Yeah.
style. And so if whatever logic filled row style, uh, so you could do your own comparison against the data in the row and say, okay, I want that to be PB whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Then you could stuff that into row style, and then I'm not going to save this, but um, in your data table, you could now say just simply row style, and it would come from your data. So basically now your data is controlling exactly. Instead of using a value out of a row, you can use just the data directly.
Right. Right.
So I think that's how you could accomplish what you were just talking about.
Sounds reasonable.
So yeah, in my example, and I'm not really done with this yet, but I wanted to just kind of show off different. We've also talked about wanting to be able to style other things. So, for example, I've set up the card view as well, and the card view follows the same pattern where we're it's styling the entire card based on the row status, and the note still renders as you would expect. So, um, this now follows the same rules. Um, And I did calendar as well, and I haven't really finished up on that one. But this doesn't render as nicely just because of the white on black kind of thing. So I expect I'm going to tinker a little bit more here, maybe add an additional class uh, that's being used for calendar just so it renders. Because calendar is doing white on, in this case, white on green, versus when we look at a listing, it's black on green. So it's really not very friendly that way that it's making you switch. So, uh, and I just I ran out of time before we got going today on why this was rendering that particular way. Um, but it might be that I mean, might be easily solved just by making sure that these render with black or a dark color just to kind of match the.
Yeah, just a little more CSS.
Yep. And so uh, that's not it. When you say just, that's the difficulty, right? Uh,
It's easy.
It's just tedious. It's not too hard. It's just tedious.
my my intern knows the answer to this question, but I'm not here today. So, um,
Are you looking for to color the text? It's just color. That's the
Yeah,
word. And if it doesn't work, there you go.
and it still doesn't work. What is that?
We're not hinting the right element.
Yeah. Well, whatever it is, I'll find it and we'll style it. And so I guess that leads me to first, well, so we're down the rabbit hole of CSS. There's a couple of more things that I wanted to mention or we'll bring into this discussion. Um, on the listing settings, there is a setting for, there's a root CSS class. And so classes, so you could add your own styling, your own class here, which applies at the top of the listing. So that's another thing that you can use to style. Um, and
Yeah,
then,
I've done that before. There's a contribution. I think mine was based on a contribution from Anthony Cadden a
mhm,
while ago to do just that, and it works great.
yes. So you can add classes there. And then another thing is like on um, well, I think all of these will be added. There's always more to explain. So, and the calendar, each of these views have their own class that's being added. So, I happen to be using the same one for calendar and cards and data table. But if calendar needs to be styled differently, I could add a different class. And then also, I'm pretty sure you can add other classes as well. So if I do this and switch back to a listing and look at it, um, and look at the row, where did it go? See, you can, we're getting the row status new plus other classes there too. So you can define more than one class if you need to do a combination of things on that one. So uh, this problem that I was just dealing with calendar could either be handled by keeping uh, the same class and adding more classes to it, or picking a different class. I'm not sure which. So
Hmm.
I'll tinker with that.
So they are on the calendar view. Is that white text, is it clickable? Are those anchors?
They are.
That's what we need to change the CSS to style the anchor instead of the cell, the div or whatever's in there. So the CSS has to be a space with the class name.
Good catch. So yeah, we get it, it is an anchor, and so it would be
Yeah. I mean, you can work it out at your leisure, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be
and it
the
was
ticket.
uh, row status new, right? Yes, I will work it out at my leisure.
Yeah,
Uh,
you'll probably need to make that important too because it's already styled elsewhere to be white.
yep. Well, there it is here. This is now talking about the PB font color. So, uh,
Yeah, you're on the right track.
yeah, anti. All right, so we'll sort that out. Um, but it is interesting, again. from a design choice thing, the fact that we have defaulted these to a dark color
Hmm.
and defaulted these to a light color ends up making it where you're going to have to style it anyway.
So there are a lot of times when I have wanted to style listings, and I think this is great. I'm really going to be using this.
Good. Well, I'm going to leave this out here as an example, and I will put the explanation for it on a contribution as well that will point into this so we can see it and use it and whatever. But I think it's very, and can't do this one without mentioning that our good friend Patrick was a big proponent and of the idea and the implementation of this, and it's
I,
really pretty.
I kept on bringing it up again and again.
You were persistent. I didn't see that you joined us, Patrick. Welcome.
Hi, how you doing?
See how I talk about you when I don't know you're here?
It's really it's exciting to see this come you know come into being, and especially exciting that that you guys went in the direction of adding it to the other views too, not just the table view. So
Bogdan has a wide angle lens on this
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
When I was doing this example, I ran into something that surprised me a little bit. Um, uh, Easily solved, but in the data side of this, we added the ability to have a label CSS class and a field CSS class. So the field CSS class is what we're using, for example, here on Note. Um, you can also style the label slightly differently, so that would be this field here.
Ah, yeah.
But you can't style that one conditionally, right? You can't while tokens are available, row tokens aren't really available. You're just going to get the luck of the draw. If you've got 5 rows and you use note status, there's no telling really. I think it might be the last one, but it doesn't matter. The row status that gets the way that note status gets resolved at the before you're even into rows is undetermined. So you can use tokens, but you can't use row tokens. And the which is that part wasn't surprising, but the part that was surprising is that we didn't really, that I know of, provide a nice way to style. Like I didn't want it to be white. I styled it to be blue, this very light blue. And so that got done. I found a different element to style. Uh,
Sticky
it,
top. Yeah.
yeah, T-head sticky top got done. You could probably do it with the listing class as well, but I just found something and styled it. So there isn't a nice. I want um, the header to be styled kind of a class. But you could style each individual column too, and so just for example, if you had a token that represented a user theme choice, dark choice versus light choice, you could style it based on the user selection. Anyway, lots of flexibility, not too hard to do. All right. Final topics on that one and questions on that one before I try to move on. Got a few of you joined since we started and we didn't do any first call. So if you have a first call, this could be the time. So I'm kind of down to the bottom of the barrel for my anything I prepared. Other than that, it's wherever you want to go or we end early. But I did have a question from a client that I wasn't able to easily explain. They are exporting an automation from their development system importing it into their production system. It imports just fine. It doesn't complain at all. But if you try to edit it, you get the forever bouncing ball Plantain app icon.
Hmm.
And I've got our developers looking into why that is, but wonder if anybody else had happened to encounter that and trying to figure out A, if there's a solution, B, how bad the problem is.
It sounds like it's probably something that's in the automation, right? Like something specific in the automation that's
I
because
would expect.
yeah. It's not like that happens with any automation, right? It's probably something specifically in that automation. That sounds
Exactly. And my guess is it might relate to something that is present in the system where it's coming from, but not present in the other. But
yeah.
our normal behavior when you do that, for example, if you export from a form that has our PDF tools loaded and you're using the PDF field types or the PDF actions, you import that into another system, uh, those things don't import, and so your import succeeds, but the PDF field type or the PDF actions would just be omitted. Um, so it's not throwing errors. It works,
Mhm.
but doesn't maybe it didn't do what you wanted it, but it does something, and you could sort out and eventually, oh yes, uh, I need to load PDF on this target system to make it work. But this one, it's misbehaving, and as it happens, it's the second time that it's happened for this particular client, and so it's uh, no longer a one-off. Maybe your uh, export got corrupted in some way, your automation got corrupted, but no, there's something going on that we probably need to get to the bottom of. Just didn't know if you'd happen to experience it. All right. Um, maybe I'll just I touched on this briefly earlier when I mentioned that the Bootstrap 3 retirement is in version 1.29. We uh, we were originally going to do that, remove it in 128, but now we're doing our very best to get version 128 out the door uh, so that the vulnerabilities that are in earlier versions of DNN and have been discovered and fixed in DNN 10 so we can get to DNN 10. DNN, our current version of Plantain app 127 is not compatible with DNN 10. The 128 will be compatible with DNN 10. So we're trying to skip anything that's optional. So anyway, just I guess mentioning that we're doing what we can to get DNN 10 compatibility. Where are you guys with your DNN 10 upgrade plans?
Waiting for Plantain app.
Yeah, I just did a standalone site, non-Plantain app, and yeah, it's proving a little problematic right now.
Hmm.
But
What are you
could be.
experiencing?
It's the kind of typical thing where you have it's trying to use it. There's a problem with the web config where it's not referring to the right DLL sort of thing. So you got to sort out which DLL, get the versioning correct, and so on. So it may be unique to me
Mm.
in my instance, but it's kind of a relatively common upgrade issue.
Do,
Like,
uh, do you have any? So it's not a Plantain app site, you said, but do
nope.
you have some other third-party modules that are present there?
Yes, and I hate to say the word too sexy, but I will.
Hmm.
But I say that, and I'm kidding because it's been problematic in the past, but it may not be related to that at all. It just happened, and I haven't really been able to dig into it yet.
Yep. Um, Yes, Too Sexy and I know has. I mean, we have talked about it before. Um, there is targeting of particular DLLs that they do when they install the product, and so it wouldn't surprise me if and that's an issue that we face too. We target specific DLLs, and um, so we need them to be present. The whole Too Sexy Plant an App combined thing when we're both targeting different DLLs, that's where we kind of entered into issues with it. But yes, not I wouldn't be surprised if that's the same kind of issue. So
Potentially, yes.
I just didn't know if there were anybody with experience of a raw DNN10 or a standalone nothing except DNN10, and if there's any issues that because it's an early version. I assume probably not. They've gone through several release candidates, so it's probably good. It's an interesting topic that, to me, that um, you have these complex things like Too Sexy or Plant an App or any of the other third-party modules that run on top of a complex platform, and that the when you change out the platform, it's not surprising that things need to be fixed. Um, and um, so, what's a reasonable expectation for a third-party vendor to catch up to um, the DN, the higher the platform change, and it's of course exacerbated by critical security updates that get announced. I mean, we have certainly some clients that are very anxious to upgrade, and are it's just not as easy as or maybe it's as difficult as you might think that our platform needs changes to make it work, and it takes time. Oh well. All right, I am seeking about for topics. If there's anything else you want to talk about, any news about DNN Summit, any DNN news in general that would be worth talking about? Um,
There
any?
should be news about the NN Summit, but there is not.
Okay.
That means it's a little behind.
Yeah. It'll happen when it does.
Um, I can toss a question out for you guys. I wasn't planning on bringing it up because I found a workaround, but um, I think a while ago we discussed this. You know how when you do uh, required validation and you add a condition for the validation to run, that then makes client side validation doesn't apply if you put a condition on a validation. And I thought that there was um, some way to accomplish that. Uh, like there was something you could do that would make it work, and I actually thought that maybe I came up with the idea, but I can't find it and I can't remember it. What I ended up doing was just um, passing passing the conditional logic to a new form, so that the form initializes with show conditions instead of um, binding, so that I don't have to put validation on the so I don't have to put a condition on the validation, because you can condition your validation because you're doing a bind that either hides or shows the field. And I thought there was a a workaround. So if I bind, yeah, so let's say I do a bind show condition here, then for my validation, if I'm going to make this field required, I need to put a condition in my validation area as well, right? But once I do that, client-side validation no longer works once you put a condition into your validation, so that a person actually has to submit in order to see validation on the field. And
Hmm.
I thought there was some way. Well, first of all, I mean, I hear somebody saying, does the problem ring a bell to you guys?
I said, and I,
Oh, you did. Okay. Yep.
yeah, I'm just thinking out loud, grunting. Um, yes. So usually this pattern works. I'm trying to understand what the uh,
The problem is client-side validation. So if your form has under settings the option to and I think it's by default. So if you go under settings, uh, the where is it? Enable client-side validation. Yeah, that's usually checked by default. If you have that enabled, so if a field doesn't have any condition for validation, then you'll get like an email field that's not formatted correctly. You'll see the message as soon as you start typing. Really, you see the message that's not valid until you get all the components in, the username, the @ symbol, the domain, and until everything's in place. Then the validation goes away. But if you put a condition on that, that doesn't work. Now, specifically the email field, I mean, maybe you'll prove me wrong, but I do know that this is a scenario that does happen. And I really thought there was some way you could force it to work. And I feel like I discovered how to do it a long time ago, but I couldn't figure it out again. I solved it in my case just by passing my conditions. Like I said earlier, I passed them to a new form that I initialize when I need it, and it all looks like one form because I just put it right directly underneath the form I'm in.
so we have an email field, we have a bind expression.
Yeah, so now that may be at a well, I guess you can do a get or a checkbox or something like that. Yeah. Well, you can't do. Can you do? Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Tell you what, I like keeping it simpler than complex. So let's do it on a checkbox. So and we'll just call it checkbox and it'll either be true or false. So on our binding, if we say condition is going to be based on checkbox, validation is also based on checkbox. I put, yeah, so it all matches. So it's required if the checkbox is true.
Hmm.
Uh, let's go ahead and move this up here. How did I?
Yeah.
Oh,
Now
there.
check. Yeah, you put a show condition on it, so if you check it, there you go. Well, that's working in that case. Well, I need to look at my scenario again because as soon as I said that, I thought, I bet it's going to work. As soon as I specifically said the email. Well, I know that maybe I need to dig into this more because I actually am kind of surprised that did work. Maybe
So
I
for
still do
anyone
need
who
to.
hasn't experienced it, if this validation is based on the same thing as the show, if we take this condition off, it's going to try to require um, this field even though you can't see it, and that's kind of annoying. So, well, it's useless. So we've got the scenario, we click the button, I'm pretty sure we're seeing it
Yeah,
rejected.
just right. It doesn't. Yeah.
And actually, let's prove that it's being rejected. So we'll add a my favorite 2 lines here. We'll get a JSON array to tokens, and then we'll do an error message of tokens. So we'll see what's being submitted. So when it works, this, you can tell as we click this, it's not allowing us to proceed because of the validation. When it does succeed, now we see the values that were being submitted. So it's working as expected there. If we leave the checkbox unchecked and we have no validation connected to that, we do the submit button and it's not submitting
Not
anything
running the actions. Yep.
because of this, where it's required, and so, but it's invisible. So it's enforcing this invisible requirement. We put the checkbox back here in the condition. The submit now works because it passes validation. So the takeaway is that if you have a field that has a show condition, even an enable condition, you're going to want to, if you've got it required, you're going to want to add the same condition. It's just a copy paste the same one. To typically, it says anyway. So it'd be interesting to understand what's biting you in your particular case, Patrick.
Yeah. I know that it's well, I know specifically it was on a the problem that I was seeing was with the password field showing the message about what your password requires. Um, and if I had a condition on my validation, I didn't get to see that until I submitted. And as soon as I took the condition off validation, um, I was able to see it when I started typing into the password field. And my conditions were not complex. They were based on um, they're based on hidden fields, but I don't think that makes a difference. Hidden true fault fields. I don't think that shouldn't make a difference.
So this one is still submitting, and that one is submitting. And where's my password? Yep. So interesting. Yeah. So love to hear more if you ever dig into it again.
Okay.
I think I have a dark corner that I'm reminded of while I'm here. Um, there is a field, barcode scanner, that I didn't realize was out here, and it kind of works. Did anybody use barcode scanner? Um,
Mm-mm.
it renders like this. And it has a scan button, and if this is on a mobile device and you click this button, you can scan a QR code or a variety of barcodes, and the value of what you scan will appear in this box. So if you were doing an inventory application, that would be pretty cool. I
Yeah.
couldn't, my client was able to get the upload button to work. I wasn't, but the idea is if you have a picture of a barcode and you click upload, you can connect the barcode to it, and then once it uploads, it'll figure out what the value of that is as well. So it's kind of a cool field. Didn't know it was out there, so that's, yeah, like I say, a dark corner in our product. All right. Without too much effort, we've made it to our hour. So I'll thank you for joining us for Low Code Campfire. We'll do it again next Friday and maybe have feedback on some of the stuff we talked about. And in any case, we will definitely get together and talk more about Plant App. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Dale.
Thank you.